All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of LearnBiz, the podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about, does your business structure serve you, as we continue to ask some important questions during the month of December. So I'm Sandy B, and I am here with the lovely Lisa K. How are you today, Lisa?
I'm doing great, Sandy B. Doing great today. Happy Tuesday to everyone.
Happy Tuesday, guys. So, just before we get started, I want to make sure that you are tuned in to us and receiving our notifications. So, the best thing that you can do right now is click the subscribe button. Make sure that you click like as you're coming in, and also be sure to click the notification bell. That is the best way for you to be tuned into our episodes. You can also follow us on Instagram at B is for Biz, as well as Facebook at B is for Biz. And we've added LinkedIn to our mix. So you can find us at LearnBiz LLC on LinkedIn. But we want to make sure that you're tuned into all of our pathways here. But today, our topic is going to be, does your business structure serve you? Now, just a little backstory on why we're talking about this today, because many times we just know, hey, get yourself an LLC. And that's pretty much the end of business structuring. And that is probably one of the worst things that we can do as entrepreneurs, is set up a business, not understand why that business structure is helpful to us, not understand the tax implications of that business structure, not understand the protections of our business structure. Because most of the time we know, hey, start a business. And that usually means either I'm just starting it in my name and I'm just, collecting money, or I'm starting a business under an LLC name, and that's pretty much the end of the line. And, there's a lot of different things that can be done that will alleviate this type of mindset. So that we're going to have that conversation today. But first, good morning to the fantastic Rigo, who is always
Yes.
supporting us.
Good morning,
Um,
Rigo.
we truly appreciate you. So,
Absolutely.
so in getting into this conversation, I guess we should start from a personal perspective and then kind of go into some different details. So, Lisa, does your business structure serve you? Can you tell us a little bit about your structure?
Well, I have, let me see, I think both of my businesses are LLC or yeah, they're limited liability companies. So they're LLC. So that's the structure I've chosen. And they serve me pretty well. There's only one member to each of the businesses. That would be me, member, manager, owner, founder. Um, and for right now, they work pretty well. The way I understand LLCs, that they operate as pass-throughs, that basically your earnings or losses from your businesses um, are basically they end up on your personal tax return somehow if you have like uh, I think it's a subchapter S status. So talk to your accountants. Don't really ask. I don't rely on me for all of that. I just want to go through and share my a screen that helps people to understand the different structures. But as far as like the tax treatment and things like that, those are the things that people consider and that help them to make the decision to form one type of business structure or another. So it's tax consequences, where you can save money, where you can get the most bang for your buck. But definitely talk with an accountant to see what works best for you. But for me, the LLCs work. I think I must have one corporation. I'm not sure. I got to go back and check actually. Um, because there's something with a subchapter S. So there's a subchapter S tax status that I have, and I think that's for corporations. So even me right now need to talk to my accountant about a few things. So let me pass it back to you, Sandy. I'm sure I didn't help you there.
Look, I don't know nothing about sub chapters. I don't know anything about the structures. That's why I pay an accountant. He can tell me what is best for me based on my money. But generally speaking, all of my businesses are LLCs. All of my businesses are LLCs that are actually partnerships when it comes to the IRS. However, my law firm is currently a LLC that now has only one member. So when Lisa was referring to, how the taxes are treated. When it comes to an LLC is not really a tax entity. That's what the IRS will tell you. They'll tell you it's some kind of a disregarded entity, which has different meanings for different people, which is why we say talk to your accountant. But generally speaking, what it means is if you're an LLC and you're an individual, there are different ways that that can go on your taxes depending on, your monies and how you want your business structured. And if you're an LLC and you have more than one person, depending on how your structure is set up, you may be seen as a partnership or as a corporation or something else. So,
Mhm.
understanding the distinction is that the LLC is just your registration in your state. It has nothing to do with how your taxes are handled because your
Right.
taxes are based upon what the actual structure is according to your payments, right? So it's important for you to be able to make sure that you don't just, okay, I go and register an LLC. Well, that's one thing. But then it's like, well, how do I want my LLC treated for tax purposes? And that's where you have to have that important discussion with an accountant that you trust that can help you work through and figure out, well, do I want the money to come straight through from the business to me? Do I want the money to be calculated with the business and then I'm going to take whatever profits are from the business? Like there's so many different things. And the reason that you see certain companies end up, having like very little to no tax liability is because they're properly structured for tax purposes. So
Right.
that's one of the key things that is important for you to know in terms of I need to have a professional assist me with that aspect.
Oh, yeah.
Also, when it comes to your business structure, it's not just about setting up the LLC and it's not just about looking at the tax treatment of your LLC. It's also looking at the actual structure paperwork wise. This is where a business attorney who understands business organizations and how they are to be structured in writing is important because, LLCs need operating agreements. You have to have something that tells everybody how your business is to operate, who is to do what, how monies are to be shared, how things are to be divided up, what happens if a partner leaves, what happens if a new partner comes in, how does a new partner come in, how does a new partner leave. There's so many different details that need to be ironed out. So you have to have an agreement for your organization, no matter what the structure is. But the thing that people don't realize also is when you have an LLC or any type of business structure, a corporation, a professional association, you may be the employee of your business, which might mean that you may have also an employment agreement with your business. Now, if you're a sole member of your LLC, you might not see the reason to have an employment agreement. But what happens when you bring on a partner? You want to have some arrangement that dictates, how monies are to be received by you as an employee of your business versus how the owners of the business are sharing the profits, losses, and equity of the business. So just a couple of things to throw in there. I know Lisa wants to talk about some, breakdown of business structure. So I'm gonna pass it back to you, Lisa.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's very, very interesting. There's so many things that we have to think about, and you're right. We have to think about the agreements that support these business structures. It's very important. I look at just to comment on the things you were just talking about. I look at that operating agreement as kind of like the Bible of the business, especially when you bring in at least one other person to that business operation. Then you have two minds, you have two points of views, you have two sets of experiences, backgrounds, and everything that is now at play with that business. And inevitably, there could be breakdowns in communication, disagreements over the direction of the business. And you can actually anticipate a lot of problems in business by just sitting down, looking at what kind of things are likely to happen and write those things down and make agreements. Like, if this happens, then we're going to handle it this way. And if this situation occurs, then we're going to handle that, and kind of anticipate what you would do and make agreements like that. And that operating agreement is kind of like I said, it's kind of like the Bible. And people just omit it. They don't do it. They don't think about it unless and until a lot of times something bad happens. And then some attorney will say, do you guys have an operating agreement? And the folks will look at each other and go, no, you got one? No, you got one? No, nobody has one. So we definitely have to think about that. So let me share my screen, and what we're talking about here are just kind of like the basic business structures. So can you see that pretty well, Sandy?
I can, but if you could zoom in a little bit on the just the chart, that would help.
Okay, let's see if I can do that. Mm,
Yeah, that helps my elderly eyes. Yes,
that's
indeed.
better.
Yep.
Okay. So let's see how many structures we got. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like this is from the SBA.gov. So, from the Small Business Administration website, looking at 7 basic business structures that you would have to confer with your tax specialist on to find out what fits your specific business needs. But just to go through it, sole proprietorship, sole is the key word. That means one person. Unlimited personal liability is the level of liability you have. And as far as taxes, you have self-employment tax and personal tax on a sole proprietorship. The next business structure is partnership. Is a partnership. And by the very term, you know it has to have at least 2 or more people in a partnership. What is the liability? Unlimited personal liability, unless it's structured as a limited partnership. And then you limit the amount of ownership and respective liability. As far as taxes on that, there are self employment taxes, except for limited partners, and there's personal taxes. So, again, these are all things to confer with your tax professionals on. The next business listed is a limited liability company. Yay! Let's hear it for LLCs. Most businesses out there usually start off in this category, at least in the state of Florida. It's huge. A lot of LLCs.
And can I pause you right there for just a moment?
Absolutely.
Because
At any point in time, you can definitely pause me.
can you scroll up just a little bit? So,
Sure.
one thing that I never understood when I first got into business, I never understood this concept. Most of the time, people think that they have to have an LLC or they have to have a structure. And many times, people actually just start as sole proprietors, right? They're
Yes.
creating something or they're offering some kind of service and someone pays them directly. And that's it. They're doing hair. Somebody comes to their house, they give them money, they're doing hair. They're a
Mm-hmm.
sole proprietor. Now, they don't think of themselves as a business. So oftentimes the way that they operate is they're mixing their personal monies and their business monies, and it makes it very challenging for them to take advantage of things like deductions at tax time.
Right.
So that's one area that I just wanted to tap on. And just keep note, you're not only paying self-employment tax, but you're paying personal tax when you're a sole proprietor. But you have unlimited liability. That means you're paying in every single way. Now, some ways that you can shield yourself as a sole proprietor that may help slightly but doesn't eliminate your liability is you can have insurance to cover certain issues, but again, you're still personally liable. So it's a little bit of
Right.
a dangerous place to be. Now,
And
when
can I mention something on that point? So, what some people have done, they have taken a sole proprietorship and have legally added a DBA, like doing business as, like Joe Blow grocery store.
right.
However, it still goes back to that unlimited personal liability because at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing business is, your base structure is a sole proprietorship. So just keep that in mind.
And yeah, that's what I want to get into with the partnership and LLC. My business currently, my law firm is a limited liability company. But because we have 2 people, when it comes to the taxes, we are treated as a partnership. However, when you look at the breakdown of a limited liability company, its owners are not personally liable. We're operating under the LLC.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have the unfortunate situation where we We'll be hit with self-employment tax, depending on how much we make from the business.
Yep.
We'll be hit with our own personal taxes, or we'll be hit with self-employment tax and corporate tax. So it's a tricky situation, which is why your tax structure is what really matters, because that's how you really save the money. Because you could structure yourself as a partnership, but you see what that means: self-employment tax,
Mm-hmm.
except for the limited partnership, and personal tax. You could structure yourself as an LLC, but that doesn't really matter in the big picture, right? Because your tax structure is what's going to affect you, which is why it's very important for you to do tax planning, because you want to minimize the amount that you're hit when it comes to self-employment tax. You want to minimize the personal or corporate taxes. You don't want to be hit multiple times and then be ending up owing a tax bill at the end of the year. So that's all I wanted to add, is just keep in mind that, yeah, you may be a limited liability company, but you may be treated as a sole proprietor. You may
Mm-hmm.
be a limited liability company, but you may be treated as a partnership, or you
Right.
may be treated as a limited liability company as a corporation. It just depends on what your tax structure is. So go ahead, Lisa.
Absolutely. No, those are very great points, really good points. And so then after we look at the limited liability company, we get into the corporation statuses. And I did check my SunBiz registration. One of my businesses is actually a corporation. One is an LLC, one is a corporation. The one for law is actually a corporation. I'm sorry, for real estate, sorry. And so we look at corporation C corps. That means there's one or more people in a C corp. The owners are not personally liable, and the tax that you pay is a corporate tax, right? So there you go, corporation C corp. What do we say? One or more people, owner is not personally liable, and you pay a corporate tax. Now we'll distinguish that from an S corp. So another corporation, S corp, one or more people, but no more than 100 people, and all of the people must be U.S. citizens, right? So we're talking about the folks who form these businesses. You have one or more, less than 100, and all must be U.S. citizens. Owners are not personally liable, and you're only responsible for personal tax. So I have this status on one of my businesses, and that's for the corporation. But there you go. That is kind of like the pass through that I was talking about, where it ends up your profits or losses under the S corp ends up on your personal tax return, and then you pay that as a personal tax. Another corporation status is called a B corp, and that's one or more people, owners not personally liable, corporate tax. I cannot distinguish that for you personally because I don't know anything about that. And then this last one is a corporation nonprofit, and that's one or more people. Owners are not personally liable, and because of it's a nonprofit, it's tax exempt, but corporate profits cannot be distributed. So, Sandy, do you have any comment on that?
I know nothing about these statuses. That's the part where I say, it's up to people to really consult with a professional, because I've heard different things about these different statuses, including the nonprofit. Like, I know a number of folks who have nonprofit organizations, and it's a very, you have to be real careful with nonprofits. A lot of people start them, but they don't fully understand how the numbers play out, and the fact that it's not something that you're really making money from per se, much in the way like you would have like an LLC or other type of business or a regular corporation. And then as far as the C corp, S corp, B corp, all of that has to do with tax designation. So it has to do with your status in business. There's certain requirements for each one. There's certain things that your business may benefit from if you have these structures, but some businesses may not be qualified in a sense to have these structures. So it really depends. Rigo says, "Okay, ladies, is there any tax attorney or tax person that you would recommend?" I mean, I can give you a couple that we've had on our show. We've
Mm-hmm.
had Julius Adeiga. He's been on our
Yes.
show, talked about all of the different tax breakdowns and the important things that business owners need to know. And we've also had Juliana Kennedy on here.
Yes.
And we will likely have a few more folks. Hopefully, we're trying to see if we can get someone for the start of the year to talk about some things that people need to do just from the jump to make sure that they're in position. So thank you for that question, Rigo.
Absolutely. And as far as like the nonprofits are concerned, the one thing you should realize is that you don't own the profits of a nonprofit corporation. So the nonprofit itself owns those funds. Those aren't your personal funds, no matter how much you're responsible for growing the funds in a nonprofit corporation. Um, you can probably earn a salary for the work you do, a reasonable salary, but you cannot distribute profits. And I think that's what people need to probably also keep in mind if you're thinking about being a nonprofit. So I'll stop sharing at this point. That's what I wanted to add on business structures this morning. It's something to think about, but there's more levels to it. Sandy, you want to get into any of those other levels?
So we're answering the question today, does your business structure serve you? And before I go back to the question, I want to talk a little bit about our entrepreneur journal briefly. If you haven't already gotten your copy, please go on to Amazon, look up LearnBiz Entrepreneur Journal, a daily touch. Lisa and I have been journaling for literally just shy of 30 days.
Yes.
And that means every single day, jotting down certain things about how we've been learning, building, and growing our businesses. Talking about the successes, the failures, talking about the challenges, also identifying the daily steps that we've taken in order to make improvements in our business. I know for me, I'm journaling for 3 different businesses. So, I kind of alternate each day from different things that I'm doing in each one. But it's a great, great tool. You can find it now available on Amazon. Thank you guys so much for those of you that have already purchased your journal. This makes a great gift for the holidays. Buy one for yourself,
Yes,
buy
it
one for a
does.
friend, but definitely take advantage of that. Now,
Can you imagine how inspiring that would be for a young entrepreneur to receive their own business journal, something that they can begin to chart their path to success with? And
absolutely.
that's a really that's a great gift. I'm thinking about what I would have done with something like that as a young person, like 15, 16 years old. How great.
Yeah, I mean, I've even seen in my daily process, sometimes I catch myself, I'm like, man, I didn't do anything today. I didn't do any, like, I can't think of one thing that I did. That's an important thing of accountability because when you start to realize you haven't done anything, no steps, that's problematic.
That's a problem. You're like, oh no. But let me see how did because we're asking three things in the journal on a daily basis. Learn how are you learning, building, and growing your business? And
Yeah,
so,
so
yeah, if you can't answer either one of those things,
that means you're not doing nothing. That so then you can't complain when you're like, oh man, how come I'm not? Well, you haven't done anything. You didn't take one step today to accomplish something for your business. So, it's a good thing to use as a tool. So, in answering our question, does your business structure serve you? We just talked about structure in terms of your legal structure. We talked about structure in terms of the tax identification, like what does the IRS see you as? But now
mhm.
we need to talk a little bit about structure in terms of your operation. Um, for the most part, when I think about business and the way that we start businesses and the way that we operate, most of the time we are burning the midnight oil. We are a one man operation running on a hamster wheel endlessly. There is no end to the work. It's work hard, work hard, work hard, no play. I'll sleep when I'm gone.
I'll sleep when
Grind,
I'm dead.
grind late night, early morning, the nonsense.
Yes, that's true.
But
That's how we live. That's how we live a lot. But some entrepreneurs are more sophisticated and they have a very nice lifestyle and very comfortable in their entrepreneurism.
I think that we think that, but I don't think entrepreneurship is comfortable. If you're comfortable in entrepreneurship, you ain't doing nothing. Like that. That's what I really firmly believe. Entrepreneurship is not a comfort.
Well, wait a
Um,
minute
eh,
now, Sandy. What about those who are successful in their entrepreneurism?
Like,
Like I said.
like, I'm like, I want people to think about it from this perspective. If you're not working, how is your business working? And I don't mean struggling. I don't mean grinding. I said, if you're not working, how is your business operating? Because if you're the CEO of your business, chief executive officer, that means you're the chief. That means you're over all things. You have to be tapped into what's going on. You got to be talking to people to check in. You got to be getting reports. You got to be reviewing what's going on. I can't see an entrepreneur being stagnant and just chilling. Now, we get that imagery from social media where people, they're driving Bentleys and Rolls Royces and, they're relaxed and they're hopping on planes, but they're getting up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning. To hop on that plane, you got to get up and got to do something, right? Yes. You got to go somewhere and you got to meet people and you got to make connections and you got to, if you're selling a product, you got to sell more product. If you're selling a service, you got to sell more service. So even if you had 10 people working for you, you as the leader of your business can't be resting. There's no way possible that you're going to just be chilling and your business is just going to continue to run. So there's a level of work, based on my opinion, of course, I'm just speaking from my perspective. There's a level of work that goes into all levels. No matter how successful your business is, you're going to be working. Now, are you going to be working like you were at the entry level? Absolutely not.
Right.
Are you going to be working like a workhorse in your business? Absolutely not. But there's a certain level of commitment and responsibility that comes with entrepreneurship.
That's true. And you're going to always, no matter what, basically what you're saying, at no matter what level of success you are, you're always going to have a certain level of work or input to make that operation what it is.
Absolutely. And when you think of the structure, you have to look at your business as a whole operation. It's not just you. So when I think of, for example, I'm going to use the law firm as an example, because both of us are lawyers. We have our own law firms. When you think of the operation of a law firm, it's not just the lawyer. Because if it was just the lawyer, there is no law firm. I'll be point blank with you. If it's just the lawyer, there is no law firm, because you're not going to be able to do all things. You're not going to be able to do the marketing. You're not going to be able to do the books. You're not going to be able to do the actual service. You're not going to be able to draft the documents, go to court, send those mailers. There's a lot of things that go into the work. So there has to be an operation that functions in a way where it allows you to be in different places all at one time. So I'm going to give you some examples. Let's talk structure of a law firm. I'm going to do that as an example. So when you have a law firm, the first thing is it is a service. And structure-wise, there has to be a flow from the client to the lawyer to the legal process that you're accomplishing for them, whether it's a court process or whether it's drafting, like, some kind of transactional process. So when a client contacts your office, there has to be a pathway for that client, because if they call your office and they go to a voicemail, there's one of two ways that goes. If they really, really want to talk to you, they'll leave a message. But if they want a personal touch and they're already like, man, I called and I get a voice message, oh no, they're going to go and pick up the phone and call somebody else. So already you could see how the structure of a business impacts it, whether you have a personal touch or an automated touch. Some people aren't responsive to automation, right? So you have to have a way to make that personal. So that's the entry level. But now when you do actually get that client to contact the office and someone speaks to them, now it's, I need a process to intake them. What is that process? Is it an electronic form? Is it someone physically asking them the questions? Is it some process that happens after they have the initial meeting with the attorney? How is the meeting with the attorney scheduled? Is it manually by a person? Is it by them submitting a request on your website or through some kind of link or portal? Is it by them actually speaking to someone who schedules it and then puts it in a system? So those are all, the structural pieces, the call in, the intake. Then once they have been taken into the system, how does that appointment go? What's the process? Are there specific checks, things that need to be checked off a list in order for you to be able to determine if this client is a good fit for you as the attorney? Then what are the questions that the client's going to ask? What issues are they going to have with your process? What are the things that you're going to lay out for your client to tell them, well, this is how I operate. Here are my steps. And then once you've actually met with that individual as a potential client, how do you convert them from potential to actual? And what does that process look like? Are there forms they have to complete? Is there a person that you have designated to speak with them about the initial documents that need to be provided to the office? How do they provide the documents? Are they electronic? Do they have to mail documents? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Once the attorney is set up with that client, how do they pay? That's been one of my biggest challenges is payment. There's online payment systems that make it very easy for you to collect. But what about if you have clients that can't pay right now? Do you have systems in place for them to pay in full or pay as you go or using a firm or some other program?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have payment arrangements and plans where you can deduct monies from a card or an account? What does that look like? And how are they able to securely make their payment? Are you telling them,
Or
send
are
me a
you,
cash app?
yeah, or it could be some businesses are all cash. I mean, I've dealt with several businesses that made decisions that they in their structures do not accept credit cards. They only deal with cash payments or maybe some type of wire transfer
Right.
or digital transfer, but no checks, no credit cards.
And those all come with their consequences, right? Because as an example for me, I accept everything. Whatever you got, I'm taking it because I can immediately deposit my checks, mobile deposit, it clears right away. I can easily take payments on my online systems by check, by credit card, by whatever you want. And I can also take cash. Now, what happens if your business doesn't want to take certain things? You don't want to take cards because you want to take the fees. Well, there are consequences to that, right? There are some people that are like, oh, so you're only taking cash? Nah, bruh. I want to pay with my card. I want a secure way of paying. So if I pay you, I have proof that I paid you, kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
there are consequences to all phases of your structure. But the question is, do you have a structure? We just gave a legal example, but the same can apply for retail. I see a lot of vendors on Instagram and other places where they're like, send me a cash app. I'm like, okay, but if I send you a cash app, am I going to get proof of something? Like, I know Cash App keeps track, but how do I have proof of what I paid you? Right? How do I have proof of what I paid you
Yeah.
for? Right?
Right.
And how do I ensure that I can get my money back? Because I don't know that Cash App will give money back, right?
Yeah, and the thing is that if someone is just about ready to pull the trigger and to purchase from you, then you want to answer all those questions so they don't pull back or draw back and say, never mind. I don't think I trust this process. So
Right.
the businesses that anticipate what those concerns are and they address them, they are gonna get they definitely going to hear that ching ching at the end because more people will go ahead and pull the trigger and make a purchase.
And as a business owner, you have to be mindful too of the ways in which clients can get money back. If you're using services like PayPal, for example, PayPal is very consumer friendly. So when you get money from a client through a PayPal and they have a dispute and they say that they didn't get what they paid for, oh, PayPal is giving them that money right away. And you're going to have to prove whether or not you've provided the service. That's not friendly for the entrepreneur, the business owner. So you have to be mindful of whether or not your payment system is friendly to you or it's more consumer friendly, because that can affect your bottom line. Imagine if a couple of people have a refund request or they do a chargeback on their card. PayPal is giving them that money right away.
Yeah,
And some
that's
of the
true.
banks, if you're doing transactions with some of your banks, those chargebacks are quick. So, you have to keep in mind all of these structural issues. Again, so we're talking about the intake process. We're talking about processing the client once you have you've done the intake, having the initial appointment to talk to them about whatever it is that you're trying to do. What about the processing of their payments and the processing of their documents or whatever it is that they need to provide to you? How do you complete the transaction, right? Do you have any thank yous or special things that go out? How do you keep them informed about your business? Do you stay connected with the client? So, does your business serve you? Doesn't only affect your business structure legally and tax wise, it also talks about how does a client or consumer or customer flow through your business, both in and out. Now,
Hmm.
Rigo says something here. He says Cash App And all those digital formats never give money back. And if not, the bank won't have no problem either saying, sorry, you lost your money. I'm going to also
Yeah.
say something about Zelle. You know, a lot of people love using Zelle. Well, Zelle doesn't give money back either, especially
No.
if you make a mistake and send the Zelle to the wrong person. You are SOL.
Yes. Yes, that's so true.
So I think it's important as a business owner to have a vision for your structure and the weaknesses of your structure. I know for me, I've had a lot of weaknesses in my structure in terms of communications into the office and communications out. What I did to solve that is I outsourced my service. So I have a service that answers my calls, they forward messages to me, and they also call, people back for me and do certain little things to make sure that I have some communications going in and out. Sometimes that helps is helpful. Some people prefer to pay someone to have a employee or a contractor. That comes with all of its pros and cons, right? Because now you're having to deal with somebody physically. You got to train them.
Yep.
You got to make sure they come to work. You got to deal with their sick days and their off days and their all of those things. To me, I prefer to just outsource and use a company because I've done the person situation as well. I've hired contractors or employees, and it's a different situation. It comes with different responsibilities, and it also comes with a different tax hit. So you have to keep in
Mhm.
mind, what you're doing when you're spending on employees versus contractors, and you can't have both. There are a lot of people that try to act like, oh, it's a contractor, but you want them to work on your schedule. That's not
Right.
a contractor.
Right.
That you're
People
playing.
who hire employees, period, like Sandy's saying, need to make sure that they can explain the difference between an employee and a contracted person. Because
Right.
if the person's operating under in an independent contract, um, that means that you don't get to set their hours for them generally. Because if you're setting their schedule, when they have to be there, when they have to take their break, when they have to return, there could be a dispute with the IRS as far as that if that person is really an employee or if that person is really an independent contractor. So make sure you understand the characteristics for both.
So, does your business structure serve you? That's a question that you have to answer, and we'd love for you to drop your answer in the chat. Let us know about your legal structure. Let us know about your tax structure. Let us know about some of the things that you do to flow customers or clients or consumers through your business. Um, Last but not least, in talking about does your business structure serve you? It's a question of time management many times for entrepreneurs. It's a question of whether or not you have the proper technology to support your needs. It's a question of whether or not you have the proper people in position, the human aspect of your business. Many of us operate as I said, a one man or woman show. That is an extremely stressful and draining way to operate a business. And it's not to say that you have to immediately, upon starting a business, spend money on staffing or spend money on any kind of service, but there has to be a transition from where you are to where you want to be, but you have to have a plan for that to happen. One of the things that I suggest for all entrepreneurs is that you really think about your game plan time wise. So if I'm starting a business in December of 2022, what is my goal to have certain things in place, right? So I may start right now with just me, but I have to consider in my budget where I'm going to make room for either a contractor, an employee, or some kind of service provider that's going to accomplish the technical back office things when it comes to my business. Because there's two pieces: there's you working in the business, and there's you working on the
On the
business.
business, yes.
You, as the entrepreneur who started the business, should gradually be shifting from working in the business to being the person working on the
On,
business, so
yeah.
you can bring in people to work in the business. And it doesn't have to be a bunch of people, right? It depends on your business what you need, but generally speaking, you want to have somebody that's going to handle the day to day. You want to have somebody that's going to handle administrative. You want to have somebody that's going to handle financial. Sometimes those things come in combination. You might have somebody that you hire as your office manager who's going to handle administrative and financial. Or you might have an accountant that handles your financial. And then you have somebody in house that handles administrative. There are a lot of different ways to do this. Um,
Yes.
I'll also say when it comes to technology, there's a million and one things out there to take your money. Please choose wisely. Because many times we got like 100 different things that we're doing, and some of the things are doing the same thing. You got to find the tech device or tech software that does the most things for your dollar, right? There's no point in paying a phone service to answer your calls if they can't also do some other things with those calls, like return calls. Otherwise, you have somebody answering your calls, but now you're going to have to call everybody back, right? So you have to have the balance between that. That's pretty much all I have to say about this business structure.
Good
I think
points.
there's 100 different things that need to be considered, and you have to answer this. Does your business structure serve you?
Oh, yeah. And then you may find along the way, you might have to change it at some point. If it's no longer serving you and it's the way you set up the business itself from the foundation, you may have to change it. So, again, those are all things you talk with your professionals that work with you in your business about and make those decisions accordingly. So, we hope these things have given you some food for thought on does your business structure serve you?
Absolute. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of LearnBiz, the podcast. We hope that you'll drop your comments in the chat and let us know, does your business structure serve you? Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Instagram at B is for BIZ. We're also on LinkedIn at LearnBiz LLC. And, you can always come here onto YouTube, click like, click share, click subscribe, and be sure to tap that notification bell. Hope you
Yeah.
guys have happy Tuesday. That's all I got.
All right, guys, have a great one.
Bye, guys.